In this video, we will be discussing about monitoring individual websites or individual URLs for its performance problems. We will then see how to identify synthetic transactions and simulate its behavior, followed by identifying the response times for each and individual transaction that is being done on a particular website. And lastly, we will be seeing how a web page analyzer can be helpful in identifying performance issues across various components that can be seen in a web page. The first topic would be monitor URLs for performance problems. So if we take a standard URL, for example, a google.com or maybe a gmail.com or zoho.com, the user will be expecting the page to load in under 2 seconds or maybe 3 seconds. Now, what if it goes beyond the expected time interval? There might be a couple of scenarios. One, the page might have slowness. Two, the page could have a high response time. So these things might not be visible to a naked eye, but this URL monitor precisely helps the end users understand the complete information of what exactly the response code would be, why the page is slow. Is it because of a response time delay, or is it because of other factors, which we will be discussing in detail on the product UI in a while. Now, moving ahead with our agenda, there's yet another factor when it comes to monitoring a website. So accessing a URL can be done, but what if the user wants to access multiple pages by consuming or creating a synthetic transaction? Now, this will easily help the users identify which page is taking too long to load or which page is having an issue. Now, these are the things which can easily help an end user identify the complete transaction and get to see where the issue is. But not only that, it can also help you understand how many people have been accessing, the number of users or the number of requests that are being sent. So these are some of the things which will be seen on the UI in just a while. Now, in order to create these monitors, there are a couple of things which are needed to be done in the first place. For example, for a synthetic transaction monitor, in the earlier builds of Applications Manager, what we had was a web transaction recorder where the user will be logging in to the console and create a transaction. With the help of Firefox, the playback will take place. Now, in the latest builds of Applications Manager, we have also created a new method, which is importing the HAR file. So the instructions to create the HAR file is given in the link below, and the same will also be available in the handouts, which will be shared on the chat panel. Now, once the transaction is created, we will have the monitor page that will look like this, which is a URL sequence monitor, where we can create multiple sequences with the help of the transactions that are being made on a single website or on a sequence of web pages. So this will help the user understand the response time as well as the availability or performance issues, which is the health if the page is inaccessible. So these kind of things would be easily identifiable from one particular monitor, which is a URL sequence monitor. Now, without any further ado, let's go to the UI and have a look at how a URL monitor is created, followed by a URL sequence monitor. So this is the Applications Manager homepage. For a user to create a new monitor, one has to click on the New Monitor tab, which is available over here, and choose Add New Monitor. Now, to create a URL monitor, the user has to provide the URL alone. So for which the user has to navigate to web server or services and search for HTTPS URLs. So here are the basic details that are needed to be provided, which is the display name, followed by the URL, be it manageengine.com, be it zoho.com, or be it your custom or your company's website or the website that you are looking to monitor. Once these details are provided, the next thing that we have to do is to provide the configuration. So let me give you an example of how exactly the details have to be filled. So let me start by providing the basic information, which is google.com. And there you go. The next step is to create HTTP configurations. For this case, for a google.com, it might not be essential, but for your target website, it could be essential that your website needs a login parameter where you enter the credentials and it lets you through. And if the particular page is inaccessible, which might have a different response code. So you can customize the response code over here based on the various options that the UI provides and get the respective information. Now, lastly, you can also do a content check. Now, these are some of the various options that this monitor offers you. So once all these values are provided, you can go ahead to add the URL monitor. So we will have this monitor added in just a while. So we have the monitor successfully added. Let me go to the monitors tab and show an existing URL monitor, which was added some time ago. So this is a standard URL monitor. So what we have over here is the health, the availability, and the response time. The response time that we see here is around about the complete trip time. And further below, we have the response time split up, which is identified with the help of 4 different components: DNS time, connection time, first and last byte time. And lastly, we have the page size as well. So these are some of the metrics which a standard URL monitor offers. Now, moving ahead with a URL sequence monitor. Now there are two things that has to be done. One is you can open a web transaction recorder as we have seen in the presentation, or make use of the HAR file. Now let me show you the method how you can create one particular link or one particular transaction, which is, let me go to google.com and search for Manage Engine Applications Manager. Now, what I am doing over here is I am trying to create an HAR file. So the steps to create an HAR file is to invoke the F12 key on the keyboard, or do a right click on the page and click on inspect. Once we click on inspect, we will have the access to various options. So the next thing that the user has to do is click on network tab, and this recording has to be stopped. Now that we are in place, let us ensure we start the recording and refresh the page. So this will create a sequence of URLs which are available in this particular web page. The next step that we have to do is stop the recording and export the HAR file. So the moment you choose export, it will give you the option to download the file, which I have just did, and followed by adding the monitor. So once again, we'll be using the same method to add the monitors, which is going to the add new monitor page and choose the option URL sequence. Now, like I said, these are the two available options. Since that we have created an HAR file, let me choose import, and it will ask you to upload the file that has been saved just a while ago. And let me choose this HAR file and provide a name, which can be anything, and upload. So this will give you the list of URLs that are available in this particular transaction or in this particular page. And at the same time, you can see there are quite a few flexible options where you can either filter the extensions or filter the components, which is various third-party domains like Google, Facebook, Yahoo, or Twitter, and many more as we scroll down further below. And you can also filter the components which are not necessary. So this is how a basic configuration looks like. Just like a URL monitor, the URL sequence also gives you the same amount of functionality where you can provide the credentials for each and individual web page. So let me choose a couple of web pages over here that are essential for me for monitoring my sequence. Now, The user can choose between adding a credential or ignoring them if not needed, and choosing the response code. Now, once all these values are filled, the next step would be adding a monitor, which would be success. In this case, we have the details listed over here. Let me show you one of the monitors which is already added that has details that can be seen immediately. So here are a couple of web pages that is recorded from one particular transaction. And as you can see, this particular page is taking 238 milliseconds, which is absolutely high. And this will take more time than expected. So this kind of results in the end user satisfaction towards one particular website. And if we look further below, the response time split up is identified, and the current response time is 276 milliseconds, which ideally shouldn't be the case. So these are the things which will have an impact on the business, where the response could be higher. Like as we see, the first byte time is the reason why the overall response time has an impact. Now, this is how you can easily identify the performance issues of your URLs or synthetic transactions that are done on a particular website. Now, moving ahead, we will go ahead and see how effectively we can simulate user behavior through synthetic transactions. Now, why is there a need for monitoring dynamic web pages? Now, a while ago, the URL sequence that we have done will give you the option where you can only identify the response time or do a content check in one particular page. But what we will be seeing right now is dynamic web pages, where if the particular website has multiple details or a change in the content, be it an image or be it an HTML link or be it a C script or a J script, all these things will be captured. Now, how can this be done? We will be seeing the necessity of using the agent-based transactions. So let me take you how exactly the complete end user journey looks like. So first up, we have a web transaction recorder, which can be installed in multiple locations. So what we will be seeing right now is the use of an agent in multiple locations across the globe. And assuming that you have applications manager installed in one particular location, followed by having multiple branches. And if you wanted to monitor a series of dynamic transactions across your websites or web pages from different locations, which will eventually result in having different response times, and it will have a different journey as well. So all these things can be monitored with the help of the agent. So what we have over here is 3 different branch offices, and applications manager offers the solution to perform the playback of your initial transaction or initial recording of your dynamic end user journey with the help of multiple browsers. So we have Firefox playback, Chrome playback, as well as Edge playback. Now, in the earlier versions of Applications Manager, we have had a standard web transaction recorder for both URL sequence as well as the real browser monitor, which we will be discussing in some time right now. But in the latest versions, we have given the flexibility for the user to choose their preferred browsers. Now, it's not that all the computers will have access to all the browsers. So people can choose between these available options to ensure playback can be done easily without having to undergo any hassle. Now, this is how a new web transaction recorder for the real browser monitor, which we will be seeing right now, looks like. The earlier recorder has had an option where you have to provide the credentials as well as the SSL port number. In the new feature, we have given the option to connect over an SSL as well as a non-SSL port number. Now, what we see over here is the recorder for the transactions that are about to be done. And this can be added as a plugin to Google Chrome browser or Edge or Firefox. And what we will be having is a complete user journey which will help the user understand the performance bottlenecks across multiple transactions. Now, how can these be identified? These can be seen by analyzing page elements for slow response times, as well as other factors. So the real browser monitoring that I was talking about gives the user a complete perspective of how the websites are functioning from different parts across the globe. This will eventually reduce the blame game. And the transaction that is initially getting recorded will be having a playback once in a while, which is based on the polling interval, and it gives you the live information of what exactly is happening to your web pages in terms of providing real-time insights into each and individual transaction that is being made. Now, let me take you around a couple of screenshots to give you a gist of what exactly it looks like. So over here, we have a couple of transactions that have been performed where the page load time of each and individual step has been captured. And at the same time, we also have additional details where you can easily monitor the components that are loaded or that are available on the web page. Now, what we have is the screenshot of a page and the resource utilization, which is the elements, the HTML elements, the links, the images, the scripts. So these are the various functionalities or various options which are available where the screenshots are captured for each and individual transaction. Now, a little ahead, we also have the waterfall model where the network related stats are also displayed, which will give the user a clear understanding as to why there is a delay or a performance bottleneck that is available. So each and individual screenshot reciprocates or caters to one particular web page, which will give you the results of all these components along with its response code. Now, you might wonder why there is a need for a comprehensive or a dynamic monitoring. So here is the answer. This will ensure that the service level agreements are met irrespective of the geographical location. And the benefit of having this dynamic monitoring, which is the real browser monitor, is it helps you track each and individual action, which is the playback or the recording that the user performs, captures each and individual mouse hover, the keyboard interactions, and it captures it, it saves it as a recording. And eventually, it will also help you understand the complete journey where if we are looking at 10 different pages, and if one of the pages has an issue, that would be easily identified with the help of the screenshots. And even the waterfall model helps you predict or determine why the issue has occurred. Was it because of a change in the element, or was it because of the change in the code or change in the script, or it could be because of a change in the image. So these kind of things can be displayed with the help of this monitoring, and at the same time, so the response time could be high from multiple locations. So these issues that are seen across multiple locations can be easily optimized. Now that we have seen a little about what the real browser monitor and how dynamic transaction monitoring helps you, let us go ahead and create a monitor that can essentially help you monitor your series of web pages, for which I am opening a Google window, and here is an extension which can be downloaded from the Manage Engines website. And the moment the plugin is invoked, we will have a recorder that looks this way. So to begin with, you'll be providing the host name. Let me start by giving the details of my local host and the non-SSL port number. Now coming to the API key. So this is one of the most secure options that Applications Manager has offered for your dynamic transaction, where you need not actually navigate to the product UI to fetch the API key. Although there are multiple ways, the easiest way is to click on Fetch API key, which will take you to the page that lets you copy the API key over here, which I did right now. And let me just go back to the recorder. There you go, and log in. Now we have an option where we can either import a Selenium script, which is the default method, or record a new transaction, which we are about to do, or open a recorded transaction to modify the script if need be. In our case, let's stick to record a new transaction. Over here, you would be providing the complete URL. So what I am doing right now is I am providing the URL for manageengine.com. Let me just go through it. So there goes my URL, and I click on start recording. The moment I click on start recording, this will open the web page on Chrome browser since I am using Chrome Playback, although you can switch between Firefox or even the standard web transaction recorder or even Edge Playback. Now, the next thing that I have over here is to choose between options. So let me choose application and applications manager. Now, one thing to be noted is on the bottom right corner, we have this dialog box which says that the web transaction recording has been started. Now, it is essential, or it has to be noted, that the users have to wait for the page to be completely loaded before the next transaction is being performed. Now, the next transaction, what I am going to do is clicking on features. And as we see on the bottom right corner, it gives you the option to identify that this particular mouse click or interaction has been recorded. So let me click on another option. I want you to have a keen eye on the bottom right corner. That gives you the option to understand what exactly is happening. So it says recorded, click and wait. So this is how the transaction takes place. Now, if I feel as an end user that these are the amount of web pages that I have to monitor, I would go back to the playback, and this is the UI of the playback, and I click on the stop. So right now, as we can see, we have 11 different steps that have been performed, which is accessing manage engine, followed by a single mouse hover and various mouse clicks across different transactions. Now we also have a warning on the top of the page, which is the manage engine website, which I have access from the transaction recorder, can be opened. Whereas if you have opened this particular website on a different Chrome window, that is not recommended because the transaction or the playback will not be successful and it will result in an error while creating the monitor. Now that we have all these steps in place, the next thing that we have to do is go ahead by clicking on playback and save. Now this is where the user has to provide some information, which is providing the page load timeout, which is 30 seconds by default, which is absolutely sufficient, and select browser for test playback. Now here, the user has the option to choose between 3 different browsers. The user can choose any one of these browsers, provided the respective drivers are installed or available. Let me create this monitor and take you to the page, which is the end user monitoring page, where the configuration changes have to be done. So I choose Chrome over here, and I have the option to do a test playback or click on next. Clicking on next gives me the option to provide a monitor name or customize the poll interval and choose the browser for monitoring. So I would be choosing Chrome once again, and I can click on save. So the moment I click on save monitor, the monitor would be added successfully like what we have over here, and this window can be closed without any issues. So before we get into the monitoring aspects, let me show you the homepage of the end user monitoring settings. The server details that we are looking are the default settings. Now the WebDriver settings is what will have to be done in the first place before the transaction is performed. Since Firefox is the default browser for playback or recording, that particular option is not given. So you have the option to choose between 2 different browsers, which is Edge or Chrome, and any change that you do requires a restart of the end user monitoring service. Now, if you see, I have this Chrome driver deployed in the D drive of my particular local host, And I am also pointing to this particular driver, which is Chrome driver.exe, which I am highlighting or I have done right now. So once the update is done, the changes have to be saved and we will have the monitoring updated after a restart. Now let me take you to the UI to show you where you can access the end user monitoring. So this is the end user monitoring. And if you have multiple branches or multiple locations, it would be displayed over here. What I have over here is the location name. So if I click on one of these names, it will straight away open the page where I can go ahead and have a quick look at the settings, the one that we have opened earlier using the local host. Now over here, I have a series of monitors which have been added well in advance. The one that we have created right now will take 10 minutes of time for the initial playback to take place and the polling to occur, and then details will be displayed on the monitor page. Now let me take you to one of the existing monitors which has details. So what I have over here is the end user monitoring agent and an overview of each and individual transaction that has been done. So let me click on the monitor page to take you and to give you complete insights into what exactly this page looks like. So the real browser monitor, which has the ability to do dynamic transaction and mimic user interactions over here, gives you the ability to monitor the average page load time. So this average page load time is across the 4 different transactions that are performed and the overall transaction time, and further below the page load time of each and individual steps. Now it is depicted in the graph where we can see the page load time of all the 4 different URLs and its response time. And a little below, we have the complete visibility of the page load time, the availability. Now, what if one of the pages have changed? For example, we have 4 steps, which is denoted as step 1, step 2, step 3, and step 4. If step 3 has an issue where one of the component in the page is changed or one of the element in the page is removed to, or it gets replaced. Now, this particular page would be marked as down. Let me show it to you on a different monitor in just a while. But for now, having a look at the transactions that is being done, so we can easily see the amount of screenshots, the resource details, and all these things that can be displayed across each and individual transaction that is being performed. So the screenshot determines what exactly we have done, the features page, by clicking on APM. And if we access a little further, we can also see at a different option, which is resources in this case. Now we can identify the various components along with its consumption, which is what we have over the pie charts to display that the image has occupied 52% on this particular page, and the size is of 72%. Now, similarly, the waterfall model gives you the complete insights of what exactly the issue is and why exactly these issues are occurring. So in our case, all the transactions are functioning fine, which is why we have a response code of 200 across all the 4 components in this single web page. Now let me show you a monitor that has an issue with one of the transactions that are being performed. So let me go to the EUM tab and choose one of the monitors over here. So this is one of the monitors which has an issue accessing one of the pages. Now what we have over here is the page load time of one particular transaction or maybe multiple transactions, which does not have an or any sort of information. And the user might not know why this has happened. So the issue has been clearly identified that a specific element, which is CSS element, has not been found in this web page. So this is how you can easily understand why there has been an issue on your particular website and why there has been a tremendous increase in the response time when you access it from one particular location, while when you access the same website from a different location, it might not have. So these are some of the various things which Applications Manager helps you identify with the help of the existing URL monitors or their real-time monitoring with the help of the playback. Now let's go ahead with the topic where we will be seeing how efficiently we can leverage the power of the web page analyzer. Now, what is a web page analyzer? So this is one particular monitor type that will help you identify the website score, and it also help you in identifying the bottlenecks. So if one of the component is having an issue, you can easily get to the point where the improvement has to be made, the enhancement has to be made, or even you can easily understand the number of requests that are being sent on a search engine to ensure that the end users are easily accessing one particular page without having to wait for a too longer. So this will help the business rank high in terms of the search engine results and many more. Now, what this web page analyzer offers, let's have a quick look at the screenshot. So this web page analyzer is one monitor where it gives you suggestions by letting you know how to avoid bad requests. By bad requests, I mean broken links or broken requests. So it also has the option where you can defer the passing of JavaScript, which is the use of a JavaScript on a page. Now, this is one example that I chose over here, where the web page or the individual component score is determined based on their suggestions. Now, this component that I used over here has a score of 73, while the other components have 100. The higher the score, the better your web pages is functioning. And in addition to these, the website also suggests you on multiple factors like the enable compression, which indicates that the size of files sent from your website can be compressed in order to ensure that the page load time is very minimal. Now, this will also help you leverage the browser caching, where you can identify the resources of the web page that can be cached and reused in when a user accesses it in the future. Now, for the web page analyzer, let us go ahead and see how you can add the monitor. What are the prerequisites that are needed for the user to add a monitor? So once again, we'll be using the same option, which is add new monitor. And once again, we'll be scrolling to the same portion, which is web server or services. And this time we'll be sticking to web page analyzer. Now for the web page analyzer to be added, there are certain prerequisites that are needed to be completed. Since we are not going to use an agent, there are some add-ons which can be downloaded, and the same information is available in the help link over here. So the download link will take you straight to the page where you'll have to download a set of extensions which has to be deployed in the applications manager installation folder. So the add-ons are listed down below, which we use for multiple attributes to determine the page performance and its bottlenecks. Now this is the new monitor page where once again, let me just go ahead and copy the URL. So the display name has to be provided, followed by providing the URL of the page. The next step would be having basic information, which is the page load time as well as the wait load time and the credentials if need be. So unless we have any credentials, we can go ahead and click on test if needed. If not, we can go ahead and add the monitor. So if this web page is accessible, it should give us a message stating that the monitor has been added successfully, which is the case with us right now. And this is a monitor page where it gives you multiple metrics. So let me take you to an existing monitor where we have data readily available that was added well in advance once again. So I have one of the monitors over here. So this particular monitor can help you with multiple factors. Like when you access one particular web page, it not only gives you the health, the availability, the response time, or the page load time. It also lets you know if a certificate has been deployed on your website. And if yes, you can also monitor the number of days for the certificate to expire. And at the same time, with the help of the various plugins or add-ons that we have used well in advance to add the monitor, it determines the page score. Now, the basic information for this particular web page analyzer monitor being the response time summary. So this is quite a common factor across the URL or the performance monitors. And it gives you various information like the load time, the connection time along with its split up, and the domain summary. So this is something new that wasn't discussed in any of the monitors in the last few minutes where URLs have been seen. Over here in this monitor, what we have is it identifies the various domains that are available. It's each IP address, the average response time, and the number of requests. So the web page which I have copied, or ideally speaking, a different website that I have copied over here has detected close to 15 different URLs or 15 different domains, and we can monitor each and individual domain. And not just that, there's a little more towards the web page analyzer where you can monitor the network log, which indicates the waterfall model as we have over here. So over here, you can go ahead and filter the content that is essential, like the HTML, C scripts, J scripts, or the images. Now, if I choose the CSS over here in the search result, it will only display the desired amount of components that are needed to be looked. If not, we can stick to the overall monitor or the overall website's information, where we have 79 requests and the page size can be easily visible along with the page load time. Now a little ahead, the resource details. For one particular page, we have the resources identified and we have the screenshots as well as the resource percentage. So the network log that we have seen gives you the overall request, which is 79. And in this page, we will be identifying each and individual split up across the request summary. Now, not to be confused with the real browser monitor, where it gives you the resource size as well as the resource percent, but it does not give you the request summary of various components unless it can be drilled down manually for all the transactions. But over here, this is across a single website with multiple domains that are available in that web page. And lastly, we have the page speed insights. So if the page has proper information, let me take you to a different monitor to provide the information for the page speed insights. So basically the plugins that we use gives us the results for the page speed insights like what we have over here. So the other monitor that we have might have had changes, which is why the information was not seen. So whereas in this page, we have the exact score that was just created some time ago. And we can see that this particular website has no suggestions because it has a score of 100. Similarly, we can look for other options, which is enable compression. So it lets the user know the complete history that this particular domain can be reduced by having an image of a lesser resolution, which will improve the score immediately and which will also ensure that the access to this particular page can be done easily without any issues. So this is pretty much what the web page analyzer does. Now going back to the presentation, I would have to say that we are just about to get to the recap where we have seen a couple of things in this video where we have discussed about monitoring a single URL, a series of URLs without the use of an agent, which is monitoring synthetic transactions, followed by monitoring dynamic transactions, that is with the help of the real browser monitor, which will help the user capture a series of transactions across multiple web pages, which is providing the complete end user experience through session replays by mimicking the user interactions. And lastly, we have discussed about detecting unauthorized changes with the web page analyzer that will help you improve the page's performance or the bottlenecks with the help of the page speed insights and other components like the monitoring the resource percentage or the network percentage. Thanks a lot for your time. Have a good day.